You might be saying, Robin, that's ridiculous. Surely you don't need an entire video on how to animate a blink. You just keyframe the eyelids open, move a few frames down, keyframe them closed, move a few frames down again, and then keyframe them open again. Surely it's super simple, right? Right? Wrong. When you're animating a character, it's really important to remember to include blinking, because without it, your character is going to be lifeless and pretty creepy. I mean, if you're going for that on purpose, then it's all good, I suppose, but most of the time it's not. There are a few things to consider when you're animating a blink, a few things that you might not have thought about. Firstly, there are 3 different types of blinks. There are spontaneous blinks, which are the blinks that you just do as a matter of course throughout your day without even thinking. It's completely unconscious, there's no effort or thought behind it, it's just a function your body does so that your eyes don't dry out. These are just the standard blinks that you do, and interestingly, young children and babies do these kind of spontaneous blinks a lot less than adults do. So if you're animating a young child or a baby, keep that in mind. Then there are reflexive blinks, which are a reflex. It's a result of an external stimulus, such as something blowing into your eye, or if somebody claps their hands in front of your face, or if you get a sudden surprise. It happens as a reaction to something, and these blinks are usually timed faster than spontaneous blinks. Then there's the voluntary blink, which is a blink that you do on purpose. You know, when somebody says a really corny joke and you're just like, did you just say that? You sure you want to run with that one? Okay. So it's basically any time that your character or you make yourself blink on purpose. When you're animating, there are also other types of blinks that you can add. So if there's a change in direction, for instance, if your character's looking one way and there's a head turn for them to look the other way, you could have a blink in between when there's a change in direction of the eyes. Also, if there's a change in thought processes or emotion, for a secondary action, you could add a blink to that to support that. For this video, I'm going to focus on spontaneous blinking, which is just the general blinking that you do while you're existing as a person every day. Blinking usually happens every 2 to 10 seconds, so keep that in mind when you're trying to time your blinks on your character. Personally, I like to animate it closer to every 10 seconds just so that the character isn't blinking too much, because it can become distracting. If your character is concentrating on something, then they'll blink even less. So I'm going to animate a blink now so you can see practically how to go about it. And I'm doing this in Maya and with the Kayla Unlimited Rig. There's a link to the rig in the description, but you can do the exact same thing in Blender with any other rigged character. It's about the principles and the technique, not the program. Frame 1 is the start pose, and I'm going to select the 2 top lid controls and set a keyframe on those. Frame 2 is where the top lids start to close. So I'm grabbing these top lid controllers and bringing them down. The top lids start closing before the bottom lids, since the top lids are the stars of the show. So I'm going to set a keyframe here on the bottom lids where they're still open. So while the top lids are starting to close, the bottom lids haven't started closing yet. We're also going to add in some eyebrow and cheek action a bit later, and the eyebrows will also follow the lead of the top lids. But let's focus just on the eyelids for now. On frame 4, the eyes are closed. That's both lids have come to meet each other and the eyes are totally closed. The top lids have come down around 65 to 70% of the way, I guess, and the lower lids come up slightly to meet them. You don't want the top and bottom eyelids meeting right in the middle. It looks whack because it's unnatural. Our bottom lids don't do that. They're shorter than our top lids and they just don't work that way, so don't do it. You want to have the top lids taking up the majority of the space here. Frame 5 is the top lid sort of compressing down on the bottom lid, pushing it down a little. You should have your eyes sit closed like this for at least 2 frames, frame 4 and 5. So that the audience actually registers that there is a blink and you can see the effort of the muscles there. It's kind of like a moving hold in a way, giving a bit of life to the closed eyes while they hold there. If you don't keep it sitting here for these 2 frames, a lot of the time the audience is not going to notice that there's a blink. It might just look like there's a bit of a glitch in the eye or something because it happens so quickly. So you do need to keep them closed for at least 2 frames. On frame 6, they can start to open again and we have the top lid really low here on the eye. On frame 7, the top lid can be just about the middle of the eye, not right across the middle again, and the bottom lid is pretty much fully opened on this frame. We'll add a very slight extra push on the opening of the bottom lid so it doesn't look too static as the top finishes opening, but it is pretty much there by now. Then on frame 8, the top lid is mostly open but not completely because you're going to use the next few frames to ease into it being open again. So on about frame 10, 11 or even 12, it'll be completely open. So you might have noticed that closing the eye happens quicker than opening the eye because it's the eye muscles that are forcing the eye to close. They're putting that pressure on it and it happens quicker. And that's also why you have that frame for compression, because the muscle is pushing it down. Then when the eye opens, it's the muscles relaxing, so it opens a lot slower than it closed. Now the next step on our road to appeal and creating a more lifelike, believable blink is to add some movement to the brows and cheeks. When you're animating, it's important to remember that with organic creatures, nothing happens in isolation. We are fleshy beings, and the motions and movements our bodies make have an effect on other attached parts of our bodies. If you forget that, your character will end up looking too stiff and rigid. We don't want the eyelids to feel isolated from the rest of the face. It's not a wooden face. So we'll go back and add a keyframe for the brows, and I'm doing this on frame 2 because I want the top lids to be leading this action, so the brows movement needs to be slightly delayed. So the brows are relaxed on frame 2, and on frame 4 I'll move them down a bit, and on frame 5 where their compression is, I'll move them down just a little more. Then a frame after the eyelids settle, so they stop on frame 10, I'll have the eyebrows settle back into their relaxed position on frame 11. So this is so everything doesn't all move at once. It's always good to have some offset in your motions. Now we'll do a similar thing with the cheeks. Rest position on frame 2, then when the eyes are closed, you bring the cheeks up. And when there's that contraction frame, bring them up a little more. Then take them back down to the rest position a frame after the eyelids settle. For some further tweaking, we can add a slight movement to the pupil and iris too. Now I like to keep this really subtle, otherwise it will look weird, but it does add some more life to the character. So keyframe rest position on frame 1, then go forward to where the lids are closed. Move the controllers down slightly. You can just keyframe the next frame, keeping them where they were, and then go to the frame right after the lids have finished and keyframe them back to the rest position. You can take this a step even further with the pupils, and if the rig allows it, you can animate the expansion and contraction of the pupil as the eye closes and opens. So it expands as the eye closes and the pupil gets less light, then it contracts again when the eye opens and gets more light again. I don't think this rig allows that. I did look for that, but I don't know, maybe it does and I'm just ignorant. Please let me know in the comments if it does allow that, if you've used the Kayla Unlimited Rig. But it's a great touch, especially for close-ups. You can even go in and further tweak it by having one eyelid slightly lower than the other because, you know, faces are not perfectly symmetrical. The muscles on either side of our bodies and our faces, like one will be stronger than the other, so these things happen at slightly different rates. And that's pretty much it. The way to get a nice, natural looking blink for your character. Obviously, the timing can change. You can go in and play around with the graphs to give it more slow in and out and adjust the spacing. Blinks are very dependent on circumstances, so that's external and internal stimuli, whatever's happening in the scene, whatever emotions they're feeling, so it really depends on the specific circumstances of your character. So this is just sort of a starting off point for you of a very standard blink that you can then go further and tweak for however you need it to be. Thank you so much to my patrons as always. Your support means the world to me. And in case the rest of you don't know, I do have a Patreon page, so you can go and check that out if you do feel like supporting the channel. For some of my tiers, I give a monthly feedback critique on their animation submissions. For the rest, I do blog posts and works in progress and share some useful resources that I find around on the internet and that I make myself, so go check that out if you do feel like it. Please give the video a like and subscribe if you do want to keep up to date with more videos. Thanks for watching, guys. Love ya. Bye.